Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Animal-Based Dad podcast. This is the show where between my guest interviews with subject matter experts and topic-specific deep dives, the aim is to arm you with actionable insights and information on how to prioritize your metabolic health and improve your overall health and well-being. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Animal-Based Dad podcast. I'm your host, Ritchie Nkana. And today I have a guest who's reached out to me via LinkedIn, the wonderful Ritchie Nkana. Ritchie, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Ricky. Thanks for having me.
No, you're most welcome. So, Ritchie, this is our second attempt at the recording. We had tried a week ago, but the internet was not behaving itself. But hopefully today it will behave itself. And at the risk of asking you to repeat yourself, would you mind just giving us a brief description who you are, where you've come from, and how you got involved in the health and wellness space, please?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, as you might know, I think people find it really funny because I come from a finance background. When you look at my background, I'm a banker, right? I come from a banking background. But they say change happens two ways. It could be through desperation or inspiration. For me, it was desperation. That's how I found myself in the health and wealth space. By desperation, I'm talking about looking myself in the mirror, don't like what I see. And by not liking what I see, I'm not talking about just aesthetics, because yes, maybe that too, because I put on quite a few pounds over the years due to neglect and all that, coming from a high pressured, very demanding kind of role that I was actually doing. But when I look in the mirror, I don't like what I see because I did not like the way I did show up for my family. And when I look in the mirror, I don't like the way I show up for my friends and loved ones. When I look in the mirror, I don't like the way I'm showing up for my employers. And tell you what, Ricky, I was actually scared. I was scared and depressed because I have health conditions that run in my family. And that rate that I was going, things were not looking good. And at that moment in time, I came to this realization, right? Because when you come to that point, I think I picked up a reading, I think it's by Bob Proctor, something like this. You can either be living in a problem, living in a solution, right?
Mm-hmm.
And for me, it was very, very definite. I was living in a problem. It was time for me to shift it into a solution. And I did reach out for help, mostly like personal trainers and the like, as we all should. But the solutions that I was actually getting were just not workable, I think, for me, because I had a very demanding role. And the only window I had was pretty much very, very late, maybe in the evening, a very short window. And me working maybe with some personal trainers and solutions they were giving me meant me working around their time, which was just not workable. So I did the next best thing and just going back to the drawing board. Started researching and studying. So I did everything from PT, I did sports nutrition, metabolic conditioning, all that stuff, not really to teach, but to help me.
Yeah.
Pretty much in the case to heal me. And that's what turned into a solution. And it was very funny because that same solution that has helped me maybe maintain that 10% body fat all year round, people started asking me those questions, right? How is it you're doing that? I was like, I'm only working out 3 to 4 times a week, 20 minutes at a time. It goes, no way. Can you show me how to do it?
This episode is brought to you by Biosim Technologies. At Biosim Technologies, we are working to bring you intelligent, AI-powered tools and solutions for human metabolic health and biology-first lifestyle change. To find out more about what we're up to at Biosim Technologies, please see the episode description for the relevant links on how to follow us.
And that's how it all started. So I started and I enjoyed it. I loved it. So over the years, I've helped over hundreds of people, I think, do the same, but it was never really meant for me to teach. But it's just my mess, which is turned into my message. So sort of like, that is pretty much my story and how I ended up in the health and wellness space.
Nice,
so as to
nice. So
speak.
you've almost described there the typical, and I say typical because it's a very common thread, but it seems very few people manage to find the solution they're looking for. But you're describing almost midlife crisis in the sort of stereotypical way. You get to that point in life and you look yourself in the mirror and you realize like this isn't this isn't what I had pictured. This isn't what I had in mind. Like this is way off where I want to be. Um, but to your credit and congratulations, you've then taken the necessary steps, and they can't have been comfortable, and we'll get to that in a minute. To really change things round. And I think a lot of people are frozen in a place of fear and apprehension because you described there you're either living in a problem or you're living in a solution. I would rephrase that slightly to better align with my understanding, and perhaps this will help some of the listeners. But you end up in a scenario where you're sitting back and either you feel like life is happening to you and you're just a bystander, sort of sitting there trying to like keep up with what's going on, or you're living the life and curating the life that you're after. And that's two sides of a coin, and you can't do both at the same time. Talk us through the change where you've gone from staring at yourself in the mirror like that and realizing that you need to do stuff. And I'm interested in the mental aspects of this because you've gone from being in corporate banking, presumably very successful, high pressure role. That must have come with a lot of fear and apprehension of the unknown as you start to move away from that, because you've stepped away from that, if I've understood correctly. You're no longer doing that. You're now full time in the health and wellness space. Talk us through the mental journey.
Yeah, totally. I think that's the biggest one. I think in every program that I teach now and what I coach, be it I've coached in finance, I now am more on the peak performance kind of space, and everything starts with that mental game. That is a starting point. Even when I was doing the coaching, like say the fitness coaching, right before you can show somebody how to do a deadlift or a push up, whatever it is, it starts with that. I liken it, say, to what I call the New Year resolutionism, right?
Mm-hmm.
You get January, the gyms are packed, right? Oversubscribed. Come March,
There's no
they
one left.
empty. Exactly. Does it mean that those people that signed up that wanted to get in shape in January no longer want to get in shape in March, right? They still do want to get in shape. What has changed, right? It's just priorities. So yeah, so having for me, I think the starting point for me is having that deep enough reason and that conviction to make that shift. So yes, it was not. It was easy. You would say, like in the case of like on paper, very successful in the case of bank, reaching the bank, but emotionally bankrupt,
Mm.
right? Um, Successful on paper as a banker, getting good paid money, even bigger goals, but guess what? My body breaking, energy tanking, living on caffeine, dopamine, and damage control, relationships on autopilot. Those are kind of lifestyle that was in at that moment in time,
Mm.
right? And you cannot be a high performer. You cannot run a high performance business on a low performance, be it a body or low performance life. Right. And so that was a big shift. So the biggest change for me is having that deep enough reason. And
Okay.
that's what I do with my clients before they come in. That's part of the process we go through.
Mm.
And I found all the clients that take through this process, not only do they have sustainable results, but have great results as well, is getting to the underlying reason or that shift, when they make that shift.
Mm.
By that is one, you have to look at what is it where you are right now? What is it? Why is it you want to make a change? By first having that awareness. For me, it was that awareness. I was aware of the problem. And at times it's facing that truth that we shy away from. So the
Okay.
truth for me is I was scared. I was overweight, right? I was gassing as far as in the case of like I was tanking by 11, right?
Yeah.
Fashion as I was, that was the truth. So at times you need to face the truth, pull off that band-aid rub in some salt, if you will, because what? Pain does necessitate movement sometimes, and the time we
Mm.
shy away from pain. So feel that pain. What is it? Where am I right now? Before you can map where you want to go,
Yeah.
right? So for me, that was a starting point. This is where I'm right now. Where do I want to go, right? So you have almost like a look back, right?
Mm.
I mean, say a year from now, where do I see myself? Say, yes,
Yeah.
this is where I'm. It's almost like a GPS.
Yeah.
Then only when you do that, then you go like, okay, right, the reasons why you want to make that shift. And that is key. And that's a step people miss. Talk about the new resolutionism. It's more like, right, I want to get in shape. Then what? You look for the capabilities. You go sign up for gym membership, right? Then to skip these two steps. One, you seeing yourself in that picture in the next year.
Mm.
Then the bigger one is those deep enough reasons. And we don't talk about shallow, skin deep reasons, right? We're talking about deeper reason, peeling that onion. Like for me, it was like only till I got to that deep enough reason because it was like, all right, I just want to get in shape. Oh no, because I don't have energy. No, that is not good enough. It's
Yeah.
like, why do you want to do that? That's what I take through my clients. Why do you want to do that? We go to clarity session we have to go through. Right. And when you get to that deep enough reason, you actually feel it. It's almost like your
Mm.
heart actually sinking because then that is your fuel and tap. You
Yeah.
putting in that workout when you don't feel like it, right? You showing up despite feeling otherwise,
Mm.
right? That's where we want to get to. Now, when you get to that point, having that deep enough reason, that's once that's dialed in, now the next step, that's when you look for the capabilities. Do I need to pick up a book? Do I need to join a gym? Do I
Mm.
need to get a coach? Now that is dialed in. So you know exactly where you are, you know where you're going, right? You know that deep enough reason. And the last bit, then you look for the capabilities,
Nice.
right?
So
So
you're
that is a process.
describing rooting the motivation into something that's deep and long lasting. We'll go back to your New Year's
Yeah,
resolution as
yeah,
example because it's the perfect example. And you're absolutely right. Every January, the gym is rammed full of new people who
yeah.
their motivation's high. They're all over it and they beast themselves for. I wouldn't even give them till March because by mid-February, give it about 6 weeks.
Yeah.
If they're in there once a week, it's a lot. But
Totally.
and what they don't realize is motivation will be high for a while, but motivation doesn't stay. And I say this as a recovering addict myself. I'm a recovering alcoholic, and I know addict brain. You go from motivation being high and adherence to your plan is very easy to do, but motivation ebbs and flows. It doesn't stay high all the time. And if you don't have a deep enough anchored reason for why you're not going to do that thing, or alternatively, why you are going to do a certain thing, when motivation dips, it becomes very easy to just default back to what you used to do. I did it for years. I would be very, very good on drink, behave myself Monday through Friday, absolutely fine. But then the motivation would dip, and then it'd be far too easy to just climb into a bottle of red wine after work. And so I like that. I like that you need to find something deeper and more meaningful. And I'll use some personal examples for myself. So I know that for me, my alcoholism was going to lead to the breakdown of my marriage and the breakup of my family. And I've got young kids, and I don't want to put my young kids through that kind of a broken home scenario. I've seen it too often. I've seen the damage it does to kids, and I don't want that. I love my wife dearly. I don't want my relationship with her to fall to pieces. I want to invest in that relationship, and I recognize that autopiloting my way through the relationship, as you mentioned in your opening statements a bit earlier, that is not adequate. Relationships are hard. Relationships take work. Relationships take investing into daily. I'll bring it back to an analogy that I used in the health and wellness space, but I think it's true of everything. People will pay into their pension monthly, almost religiously, without question, because they understand that further down the line, that's something that they're going to need. That I think we live in a society where that investing now, sacrifice now for benefit later is understood in the realms of pension. But people struggle to take that same mindset and apply it to their relationships, apply it to their health and wellness. But it's the exact same truth. If you're not making sacrifices now and investing into the well-being of that thing, whatever that thing may be, you can't bank on it being there and being in the state that you want it to be later down the line. It needs that day-to-day investment, it needs that looking after to get it to be in the position that you want it to be further down. Another example for me is both my father and my grandfather. So my dad and my dad's dad are prostate cancer survivors. So genetically speaking, there's a very high possibility that I'm predisposed to prostate cancer. And if I'm not looking after myself adequately, I'm basically inviting it in. And I don't want to go through that, because whilst it's not as deadly as some of the other forms of cancers, that is a stress and a strain and a gamble that I don't want to take for myself or for my family and loved ones. So I'm highly motivated to look after myself metabolically now to offset my risk of developing prostate cancer later. So I like that. I like that you need to find a deeper rooted cause or meaning to anchor your motivation for getting through those times where your motivation naturally ebbs and flows and you maybe don't feel like putting in the workout. You don't feel like getting up and doing the thing that you need to do. How do your clients respond to that, though? Are people welcoming of that message, or do you find that there's a little bit of hesitancy, a little bit of resistance to it?
Yeah, absolutely. I think you will find any change for the most part, there will be that resistance, right? But again, it's once they communicate it. So it's something that I communicate. And I think, because like in my case with my clients, we go through an interview. All right. It's not just because you're willing to actually pay me, then I can work
Mm,
with you. Is one of the questions I ask is, are you coachable? Then we
yeah.
go through this. So it's all about agreeing that process. If they're not willing to go through that process, then maybe it might not be the right fit, because
Yeah.
what I want is for them to get those results. And I know this has been proven over and over again, right? They will get better results. They're likely going to get better results. They're likely going to get what they're actually trying to achieve. Just what you pointed to actually there, because for the most part, yeah, we're very myopic
Mm,
to what we're looking at. It's always like the now. I was talking to my boy not very long ago. He actually asked me a very good a question, which got me thinking, actually, just more in line with what you just said. It goes like, why is it that all the kind of good stuff, be it eating ice cream, sitting on the couch, just sitting on the couch, um, is supposed to be bad for you, and all this stuff that doesn't feel too good, like eating a salad, right? Putting in a push or putting the workouts, right? It's supposed to be good for you. So it's like, yeah, it got me thinking. I was like, oh, actually, I get to think about it. It's like, actually, no, I don't think so. I don't think so. It's just like in life, because there's just two delays. There's two delays in life, right? There's delayed pain and delayed gain. And it
mm,
just so happens that all that stuff that tends to kind of feel good in the moment, you get that instant sort of like instant
gratification. Yeah.
gratification, right? But what? Delayed pain. Think of it like in a case of you sitting on the couch eating the ice cream, right? It feels good at that moment in time, but what? The delayed pain you get obese, in the case disease later
Mm,
down the line, right? And it so happens that that pain you get at the end so much far outweighs that initial gain.
mm,
Whereas delayed gain, guess what? It might feel, and it's not pain in the moment, it might feel uncomfortable putting in that workout, feel uncomfortable. Maybe eating healthy might be uncomfortable. Even saving money, for instance, right?
mm,
If you actively saving money, might feel uncomfortable at this moment in time. But the delayed gain so much far outweighs that initial discomfort, right?
yeah.
So it's just two delays in life. It's about picking which delay you want to go for. Is it delayed pain or delayed gain?
Yeah.
Right.
I
Yeah.
like that. I like that.
So for
There's,
me, I think it's just more about being able to articulate that to my clients and
Mm.
understanding that I'm on in their corner, right? For me, that is all about. That's the whole reason why I shifted into coaching because I love it so much. And if I'm not able to generate results for my clients, then I'm in the wrong place,
Yeah.
right? I might as well maybe have stayed in banking and So the thing about it, yeah. So that is so that's something that I do. I think so. I find it easier from that perspective. But having said that, yes, it's not something that is it's easy. Any change isn't comfortable. Any change have to go
Mm.
through those motions, but that's what we do as coaches, right? We're there to help them navigate and get through that initial discomfort so it becomes part of the psyche, becomes part of the system,
Yeah.
becomes part of their routine.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
like that. I like that. I've heard a very similar principle expressed a slightly different way, and I'll just share that because
Yeah.
I think it's interesting to look at it from different perspectives and give people a rounded view of it. Um, so life is suffering. You can choose whether you're suffering now or you're suffering later. And
Totally.
that sounds very shallow and it sounds all sort of hypey. But what you've just walked us through lends itself to this, and it's very true because there's the suffering in the immediate moment, the sacrifice required for later down the line.
Yeah.
That suffering is always uncomfortable and it doesn't feel good per se. Now you can find, and it's David Goggins. I follow some of his stuff, and I like his take on the mindset. Embrace the suck, he calls it. That
Yeah.
you can find joy through the suffering, and you can find pleasure. And it sounds weird, and I'll explain myself in a moment. But there's the immediate suffering, which is the sacrifice required for the reward later down the line, or there's the avoidance of the current sacrifice or the immediate sacrifice for the pleasure in the immediate future, which leads to delayed suffering down the line. And what people miss is that there's a compounding effect between now and later. And if
Mhm.
you're suffering now, you're compounding the interest on the benefit for later. And the opposite is true. If you're gratified now, and delaying the suffering or delaying the sacrifice, you're compounding the suffering that comes later. Metabolic health is a perfect example of this because someone who doesn't look after themselves today, today turns into a week, turns into a month, turns into a year, turns into decades. The compounding effect of their metabolic decline is disease and suffering, which is immensely worse than the totality of looking after their health. Because as painful or uncomfortable or inconvenient as getting a daily workout in, getting some daily movement in, eating correctly, looking after your sleep, prioritizing getting outside into natural light, as inconvenient and uncomfortable as those may be at times, they're significantly less inconvenient than suffering with diabetes type 2, and suffering with cardiovascular disease, suffering with hypertension, and all the chronic disease elements that come with metabolic decline later down the line. So I like that message. I like that you can invest something now and then reap the rewards later, or you can delay and seek your instant gratification now, but then be prepared for the suffering that's going to come later. You can't have both. You can't have your instant gratification now and your reward later. That's not how that principle works.
Absolutely. That's spot on. That's exactly it.
So I think obviously we're in agreement on all of that. And you've mentioned that some of your clients don't necessarily take well to that. And so you do this interview process with them. I wonder because metabolic health is common to everyone, whether we like it or not. We're biological beings. We have a physiology that needs certain inputs, needs to produce certain outputs in order to have good health. That it's non-negotiable. It has to happen. How do we reach, as a coach, how do we reach people who are not necessarily open to that message? What are your methodologies in trying to get people to see things from a different perspective?
Yeah, that's a very good one. I think for me, I think what I've found is communication. And at times, not so much about using jargon. Like with my clients, I think I look at it more on communicating, so educating them so they know it's not just about do this, but they know why they're doing that. Right.
Okay,
Metabolic health, as you indicated, that is it's pretty much the operating system, right? Because that's how
exactly.
we burn in the case of like fuel to bring about efficiency. Because like in metabolic health, I won't just say like, right, okay, yes, how you burn fats and sugars, but it's like that's the operating system you have in your body. So you can burn fuel so you can have focus, you can have energy. So they look at it more about the tangibles they're gonna get from that.
Mhm.
Right. So I bring in stuff that is relatable to them because you go like, yeah, when your metabolic health is actually firing as it should, that would also enhance in the case of how your energy levels show up, how you focus, the clarity, your productivity, right? So they look at it more about those tangibles. Um, so I think it's key, I think, to speak in terms, and I've learned that I think coming from, I think from banking because what I used to do was run and build systems in the case of
Mhm.
projects, and not everybody's actually technical. You have to learn to speak different people in sort of like at different levels. So you have to break it down at times and use at times analogies. Like say when I talk about say epoch, because most of my clients don't have time, say to put in the workout because they don't want to go to the gym because they say, oh, I have to spend hours in the gym. So we talk about say metabolic workout, which is use of AirPOC, which is excess post oxygen consumption. And
Mhm.
how I explain it, think about a fireplace, right? A fireplace, when you're putting in the wood, that is a workout, right? But guess what? That might just take you a few minutes to put in the wood in the fireplace, but the room will be warmed up even 48 hours after you finish putting in that workout. That is epoch. So that is the kind of workouts that we're going to design for you. So you can actually sort of like extract the benefits of a good workout without you spending hours in the gym. But you can keep on burning calories. Your metabolism will be firing even 48 hours after you stop putting in that workout. So I think, yeah, for me, I think it's all about, I think, communication. Communication is actually key
Mhm.
so clients do understand exactly why they're actually doing those things. And yes, it just goes beyond just maybe, yes, our bodies is a starting point, but then it sort of like touches on other things. And as you indicated earlier as well, because it's not just about us and how we show up, but it's about who is it we're showing up for? Is it for our loved
Mm.
ones, our family? We want to
Yeah,
be there for them, right? And we can talk about the science in the case of like a health and as far as in the case of the earning capacity, how it impacts our income levels and all that kind of stuff, our productivity, right? So yeah, so I think it's more about that communication. So they can relate
yeah,
to what we're talking about.
nice. I like it.
Yeah.
I like it. I like your analogy of metabolic health being the operating system. I've got an analogy which is perhaps a little bit inelegant, but I think most people in the day and age that we live in, it helps that penny drop. If you were to think of your mindset and your being, your personality, how you think, how you behave, your character, that's all the software, right? Your metabolic health, your physiology, the physical, biological thing that is you that runs that software is your hardware. And you're both. You're not one or the other. You are absolutely the collective of both. But you have to look after both.
Yeah.
And like a computer, like any operating system, the hardware is fundamental to the performance of the software. If the hardware is compromised, if the hardware is not up to standard, you can have the very best software in the world. It's not going to run the way it should. It's not going to work properly. It's going to be compromised. It's going to be hamstrung. That's how metabolic health works. So people get up in arms about me banging on about metabolic health, but honestly, metabolic health, which is at its most foundational level, it's the ability of your cells to process and produce energy and the biological components necessary for your life sustaining functions. That's probably the most narrowed down version that we can get. And that involves your mitochondria, and all the little cellular systems involved in that. But it underpins everything, because if your individual cells work the way they should, then by default, the tissue that those cells are part of are working the way they should. And if the tissue is working the way it should, the organs and the systems will be working the way it should. And so it builds up to make the complete picture that is you. But you have to look after the hardware if you want the software to run right. How do you
Absolutely.
how do you find people respond to that message? Because you've studied metabolic conditioning and metabolic health. How do you convey to people that they need to be looking after that foundational aspect of what it is that makes them them?
Yeah, that is a very good one, because now I think initially I started off like coaching fitness because I thought fitness was the main thing. Coming from a banking, because I used to build systems, right,
Mhm.
in the corporate world, and but what was frustrating me was, and something I realized, I found myself in those shoes, and I found my colleagues, and I saw other people in the same area. We focus too much on the tools, the strategies, the hacks, and how we can build those systems, but neglect the very operator of those systems, right? And initially, I thought fitness was pretty much in the case of just a key solution, as far as in
Mm.
the case of like doing that. That's how I went into that. Yes, start off with myself. Then I started helping people in doing that. How is it that you can upgrade the operator, which is now the genesis behind the Operator's Edge, which is my current
Nice.
flagship program? How is it you can up level the operator behind the business, upgrading the operator without burnout, right?
Yeah.
And by upgrading, we're not just talking about, yes, physicality is a starting point because that's a foundation stone.
Yeah.
But then we're talking about in the case of like that is health, but we're talking about in the case of like systems, and we're talking about relationships as well, because that does fuel everything. Now, to your question back to that and how I communicate that, I think the key is energy drives execution, right?
Hmm.
You cannot execute without energy.
Yeah.
And executing starts with our bodies, right? So like an operator's edge, we got four key pillars, and the very first pillar is based on that. The operator is based just on that, right? Because you cannot execute without energy. Energy drives execution. Then you can
Hmm.
have systems. Systems would drive scale. But without that grounding foundation of you being in health, yes, it can work. I love the analogy of the phone you gave, because that's something I've used something similar as well. Because for the most part, it's about the operating system. The body, yeah, you're looking at it more from an operating system perspective. What normally happens right now, you've got a lot of high achievers looking at hacks, looking at strategies, methodologies, right? Those almost like you have a 2000, a phone from 2000, the smartphone from
Mm.
2000, and you upgrading it with 2025 software, right? So these are the kind of hacks you're putting on there, just sort of like taping on there. Yes, it might work, but guess what? It will glitch, right? It will not work as it should,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. It's
So
not going to
that is
perform.
absolutely. So that is the whole point. So we need to start with what? The operating system, upgrading the operating system. And that's where at least starts with our bodies, energy, that
Mm.
alignment. Even same with the systems, it starts with self. And that's the reason I've been so big on this, I think, in the recent past, and looking at sort of like trying to articulate that message that, right, you can't, there's so many things right now. There's so much noise and so many tools out there,
Mm.
but those tools can be only operated so much. It starts with the operator. If the operator is where they're supposed to be, guess what? Then it's easy to operate those tools. Those tools just become
Hmm.
levers, and that's a hope that's where we want to get to.
Nice. Nice. Yeah, I like that. I like that. Um, you mentioned right at the beginning that you have some similar to myself. some familial history of chronic disease. Do you mind talking about what that is? What are you hoping to avoid, and what are your strategies for avoiding that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think for me, I think I've got things like I've got diabetes in my family. I've prostate cancer as well. I think is one that has I've had a family history of that. Hypertension. It's all those kind of things. And at times it keeps you thinking, right?
Mm.
Because at times it's so easy to think, oh, it's never going to happen to me. But as you indicated, it's all about investing. What we investing. This is a compound interest, right? You
Yeah,
don't want to wait because for the most part, we always reacting to life. And I didn't want to be in a situation where I wanted to react to life. So for me, like the deeper reason I had when I was making that shift was I want to be there. Say if I have in a case of like kids, I want to be there for my kids. I want to be there for my
mm,
family. I want to be there for my loved ones. Right. When I made that shift to go into this, because that's deep enough reason. When I don't feel like putting in that workout, that is fuel and tap. I can remember that is
mm,
why I'm doing this. Right. So it just reminds you, and you keep on investing, putting in that investment into that part, right? So you can sort of like reap those benefits later down the line. Yes, do
yeah,
I enjoy it every time? No, I don't feel I don't enjoy it at all. But I enjoy the results. I hate it sometimes. I put in the workout, I hate it. But I love what comes out of it,
yeah,
right? So yeah.
yeah. Now that's brilliant. I'll get back to my David Goggins embrace the suck analogy earlier, because I can relate. I work out. I try to work out 5 days a week. I do calisthenics, so I do an upper and lower body split. But I try to, where work and time allows, get at least 5 days of proper dedicated workout in, and then I try to get adequate movement in outside of that throughout the day, so that I'm not completely sedentary. Um, and you don't always feel like working out, especially not hard, like not putting in a good solid workout. But David Goggins, and I can't remember when it was a few years ago. He had this thing, he was sort of like running down the road and doing one of his little monologues. And he's one of those guys, you either love him or hate him, but he's talking about
Totally.
embrace the suck, right? Like
Yeah.
it sucks. Like, there's nothing fun about this, but embrace the suck and you can find the joy in it. And I related to that because I did Brazilian Jiu Jitsu.
Yeah.
Um, and for those who haven't done it, the best way I can describe it is it's like ultra aggressive chess.
Yeah.
And it's something that you're simulating murder with another consenting adult, basically. You're trying to kill them and they're trying
Yeah.
to kill you. And you're doing this in a controlled environment, of course, and everyone is happy that they're doing it, but it's hard. It's by far the most physically taxing thing I've ever done in my life. And it stresses you to the point where you have that flight or flight response,
Yeah.
where a person's on top of you trying to strangle you with your own clothing, the gear that you wear. And you're trying to stop this from happening, and you want to strangle them too, basically. And that fight or flight response comes. And that, at first for me, I wanted to fly. I wanted to get away. That initial response is panic and leave. And embrace the suck got me thinking about it and thinking about the mental space of it. And I sort of got to the point where I was like, you know what? I can actually condition myself
Yeah.
such that I don't feel the panic and I want to run away. So what I did was I got forget what they called. I think it's called training mask. It's like a mask thing comes over your face and you can adjust it to control the amount of air that comes in
Right.
or
Yeah.
out while you're breathing. And I went through a period of purposely training for jiu-jitsu using that. Now, training masks are advertised as improving your VO2 max and all that sort of stuff. I don't know. It's supposed to simulate training in altitude is theory
Yeah.
behind it.
That's it. Yeah.
I can't speak to whether that actually works or not, but what it does do, and I used it for this, was it simulated getting bloody smothered while you're in the midst of the hardest physically taxing thing you've ever done. So I would put it on and I would hit hard cardio and hit a hard workout, sucking air through this thing, struggling, and it put you right up there into that fight or flight type response. But you're in a controlled environment with someone not trying to kill you, and you can stop and take it off at any time you want. And just having that little bit of mental space to say, I can stop this anytime I want. I was able to work through that discomfort and condition myself to not panic in that discomfort. And that translated across to jiu-jitsu beautifully, because then while we were rolling and while we were trying to kill each other, I wouldn't feel panicked anymore. I would be able to embrace the suck. It didn't make it any more comfortable. It was still the most physically taxing thing I've ever done. And the guy's still trying to strangle me, and I'm still trying to stop him from doing that so that I can strangle him instead. But I didn't feel the panic in it. And so I think that if people can take a similar, and it doesn't have to be exactly the same, that's probably an extreme example, and I'm probably a bit of a weirdo, but if people can take a similar approach to their health and wellness journey of going, okay, well, I have to do a thing. I don't necessarily always feel like doing the thing.
Yeah.
But how can I strategize and implement slight changes, maybe slight tweaks that make me less likely to feel the level of discomfort that causes me to step away from it? How can I work through that discomfort in a controlled and phased manner to the point where that discomfort doesn't leave me feeling panicked or the need to just get away? That, for me, is where discipline starts to get set, because motivation ebbs and flows, but discipline, where it's set, discipline is the thing that keeps you going and keeps it constant. Do you find anything similar? Do you have anything similar in your protocol that you work with your clients? How do you help them get through that initial discomfort and overcome the fight or flight response, or the panic at the discomfort? Because many people will come from a place of perhaps not looking after themselves physically at all. And they get into that first sort of throes of trying to get the physical work in, and it's uncomfortable, and you get sore afterwards, you get DOMS and everything that goes along like it. How do you get them through from a mindset perspective to not abandon ship and give up?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a very, very good one, because I've seen it plenty of times. Because for the most part, most people want to go from 0 to 100, right?
Yeah.
And that time you go burn out, then people actually fall off. So it's all about, in the case of, bring it down a little bit, because in the case of, how is it that you can ease people into it? You find most people at times, maybe they've not done any workout in I don't know how many years. Maybe they haven't even done any workout, but it's all about getting started, because as I said, for the most part, we react to situations. Maybe something has actually happened. Or go like, oh, my health is not good, I need to make a shift. So that is reactive, as opposed to being responsive to the situation. Maybe you just start because you're just aware of the situation, right? So in doing so, at times you're studying them slow. Because like with metabolic health as well, yes, we're talking about, there's a basal part of it, which at times we just, our metabolism is actually working, even when we're just sedentary, we're not doing anything. But they say little things like, even just like things like NEAT, which is not spoken of enough, NEAT, which is non-exercise activated thermogenesis, right? It's just the daily stuff that we're doing, just incorporating that movement. It doesn't have to be exercise. Is it? In the case of just the little things, in the case, just making that movement in the house. So it's incorporating that. Yes, then you got the EAT, which is exercise activated thermogenesis. So like with some of my clients, at times we just start, maybe the very first week, the very first 2 weeks, could even be a month. It's just walking, them putting in maybe 20 minutes or half an hour of just walking. We don't even go into them lifting anything. Then we kind of build up on that. Because for the most part, at times, it's, again, it could be paralysis analysis. Even when I've coached like finances in the past, there's actually a stat that was said. They found that there was about 500 billion that was lost in the financial markets on a daily basis, right? Not from investing, but lack of people not pulling the trigger, and not because they do not have the money. Money is just sitting maybe in some savings account, which is not really earning them any interest, Why? Because paralysis of analysis.
Mm.
So much information and not pulling that trigger. So you don't want to put your clients in a situation where there is so much to work through and so much to think about. It's about how you start them slowly and progressively get them into them turning into a routine. Routine becomes a
Mm.
habit. So what I tell my clients is like, think of it like in a case of brushing teeth. When you were younger, I remember in my case, my parents, brush your teeth. It's like, you know what? You get that friction. There's always that friction. But guess what? Now we brush our teeth without even thinking about it.
Yeah.
I tell them that's where we want to get to. So we come to a point where right now, yes, it might be a little bit of friction, but by the time we're done, this will be a routine. It becomes a habit. You won't even think about it because it just becomes part of you. So that's how it is. I think it's progressively
No,
get people into it. Yeah.
I like that you bring up need as well, because
Yeah.
what many people don't appreciate is need should, in the ideal scenario, account for the majority of your activity in a day. It's so easy for us to focus on the workout,
Yeah.
but the workout is 20 minutes if you're a bit time constrained,
Yeah.
an hour, hour and a half if you're someone who has loads of free time and can actually spend that investing in the gym. But you can't, short of being a professional athlete and having multiple training sessions a day, because that is your job. An average person juggling a corporate day job, a 9 to 5, you would struggle to spend more than an hour, hour and a half max actively working out. But that leaves the overwhelming majority of the rest of your waking time
Yeah.
where, if you're not paying attention, you're sat in your ass doing nothing.
Totally.
And then you're diminishing your returns big time. And I'm guilty of that myself. I work a corporate day job. I can easily sit down and be completely sedentary and get up at lunchtime, do a workout, and then sit down and be completely sedentary again. And then I'm in bed, completely sedentary, sleeping at night. It's so easy in modern life and in our modern Western lifestyles to be sedentary all the time. We've outsourced basically all our movement. We've got cars, we've got elevators, escalators. Like, we've outsourced as much movement as possible, and we've focused on convenience to a degree that is almost insane. But yes, at the small non-exercise movements, things like walking up a flight of stairs instead of taking the lift or the escalator, doing some chores around the house instead of outsourcing it and paying someone else to do it for you, walking to a destination instead of driving there if it's in
Yeah.
within walking distance, or cycling instead of
Yeah.
driving if it's a bit further. But getting in movement throughout the day, which is not your dedicated exercise slot, is such an important step. How do you, because you've come from a space where you were time starved and then under a lot of pressure and didn't have loads of time to work out. How do you get your clients to fit in neat around high pressure corporate jobs or corporate environment that requires them to be sat down in front of a laptop?
Yeah, absolutely. It's just some of the things like you just mentioned right there. If you're driving to work, just maybe park a little bit further from the building so you can actually walk to, like, now most of the offices you have stand-up desks, right? So you do
I like
that.
those.
Like in my case at home, I've got an office gym and home office. I've got a stand-up desk, but what I've actually intentionally done as well, I've got I've got a portable sort of like treadmill underneath there,
Yeah,
so I could be on meetings or on Zoom meetings. I'm putting in those steps. So it's little things like that. Yeah, instead of taking the elevator, you take the steps. So it's little things. Be it in a case of just even when you're at home, be it vacuuming.
yeah,
It could be little things. One, you're killing two birds with one stone. You're making the house nice and pretty, at the end, you're putting in a bit of a workout. So it's little things like that. Like I had clients that I would recommend just even lunchtime, right? Take a 20-minute walk. Take a walk around the block. Yeah, take a walk every 10 intentionally every so often. Stand up
yeah.
and take a walk around. Just go to the water machine, to the water cooler, And that as well, that kind of
Yeah.
breaks it up a little bit in the case of rhythm. Don't just have water on your desk, but just keep on sort of intentionally keep on going to the water cooler. And that is another way of actually breaking up you standing up and just putting in those steps a little bit as well. So yeah, so it's just about being intentional, and everybody's situation and circumstances are very, very different. And that's the reason why there's no cookie cutter way of actually doing things.
Mm.
But you will find that there is ways in which you can put these things around your lifestyle.
Yeah.
Fitness is supposed to enhance your lifestyle, not take away from it. So it's all about tailoring these ideas, these strategies around your lifestyle
Mm.
based on your circumstances. But there is plenty that can be done without you even putting in a workout.
Yeah, and if you've got kids,
Yeah.
play with them rough and tumble style. Like,
Oh yeah.
and this sort of gets away from just the metabolic health
Yeah.
space at all. And Dr. Jordan Peterson talks about it quite a bit. We have, as mammals, we have a play circuitry in the brain, and it's such a foundational part of what establishes bonds and connections, but also forms our character over time. So for children, that rough and tumble play and engaging in rough and tumble play is such an important part of their character building and their development in the bonds that they form with you. And I say this as a dad as well, because
Yeah.
my children come to me for rough and tumble play. They don't necessarily go to my wife.
Yeah.
So they'll come and run and jump on me, and we'll have a little rough and tumble and a wrestle and stuff like that. And that's a fantastic way to bond, but it's part of NEAT because you're getting that non-exercise physical movement in. And the more you can integrate that with play, I find personally,
Yeah.
the more sustainable it becomes as well. And it comes back to my analogy, or David Goggins' analogy rather, of embrace the suck. And I think play is a key component in making something sustainable over time. Um, for me, it's find a sport you enjoy, whether it's something that you do singular. I enjoy surfing, but surfing is a singular sport. You do it with friends, by all means, but it's not a team sport. You're not on a wave together. You're on a wave on your own, but it's very physically demanding and enjoyable. Or you can play team sport, rugby or jiu-jitsu or whatever the case may be. But if you can take your physical activity and find a way to make it be playful as part of a sport, is probably the easiest analogy for people to relate to. Engaging that play circuitry in your brain makes it so much easier to find the joy in it and to make it sustainable long term versus just getting in a gym and lifting weights. If you're someone who hates lifting weights, like lifting weights is good for you, and I'd still recommend you do it at least 2-3 times a week.
Yeah.
But if that's literally all you're doing and that's your only avenue for investing in your physical health, you're going to hate it and probably not want to stick to it long term. But if you can find a sport that you enjoy playing and you can build community and engage that play circuitry in your brain, you will find the enjoyment in it and you will make it more sustainable for yourself over time, and it'll become part and parcel of lifestyle. And that's the secret sauce.
Absolutely.
That's the secret, the key to success.
I love that. Like in my case, like martial arts, I think for me has been one of those things that I've actually gone to. And I always recommend that to kids as well, because one, it's just not only you get the physicality from that, it's a discipline, but it also works on your coordination as well. And you just get to meet good people as well, right? So at
Mm.
times, yeah. So it's all this kind of combination. Talk about relationships as well. So it's all about yeah, that is a good one. And how if you can find something that is not only just fun, it's fun, but you are also you're putting in almost like a workout,
Yeah.
but there is yeah, that is a benefit that comes out of it.
Mm.
But there is plenty other stuff that you're getting out of it. Yeah,
Yeah.
so yeah, like for me, martial arts I think is one of those things that have been a game changer for me.
Nice. Which martial arts specifically do you partake in?
I come from a Jeet Kune Do background. Jeet Kune
Okay.
Do is my main thing. But I've done some Silat as well. I've done some Eskrima as well
Nice.
on easy.
Yeah, I like it. I
Yeah.
like that. I personally, I want to get my kids to do jiu-jitsu. I think jiu-jitsu is, for me, you're not striking each other, so you're reducing the risk that comes inherent with striking each other. I've done
Totally.
mixed martial arts in my earlier years. And yeah, you'd come back with split eyebrows and split lips and stuff like that, and stitches, and like kids don't like you don't want to introduce too much trauma too early
No,
on.
no,
But
you don't.
jujitsu,
You
I
don't.
like jujitsu. It's
Yeah.
controlled, and it's a very mentally engaged activity because you're trying to unlock a puzzle and figure out your opponent's game and how to apply your game to them. It's I like the mental aspect of that. It's very challenging and gets you thinking, but it's giving you all those other benefits as well. It's giving you the physicality because it's rolling
Oh
around on
yeah.
the ground. And I say this as someone who's done mixed martial arts. So mixed martial arts, for those who haven't done it, cage fighting, so UFC stuff like that's
Yeah.
mixed martial arts. But what that really is, it's not. It's become akin to a martial art on its own, but it's actually a combination of a whole bunch. So we used to train boxing, kickboxing, jiu-jitsu,
Yeah.
and then we would combine all of those in a cage
Yeah.
and basically try to beat the hell out of each other. But in all the training that we would do, like the boxing training was physically taxing, don't get me wrong,
Yeah.
that was hard. Kickboxing also very, very hard, but rolling around on the ground with someone trying to strangle them is miles above in terms of physical drain.
Yeah.
It's the most draining thing I've ever done. It was really, really hard. And I think that that is something that I want kids to experience, not because it sucks, but because you get the physical stimulus out of it that you need, but you're also doing the play circuitry engaged. You can have fun with it, and you're getting the mental stimulation of problem solving and trying to figure out your way through issues and problems and get the outcome that you want. And that it's just such a good harmony of physical and mental exercise.
Absolutely. I love it. I've done jujitsu though, but I haven't done it as long as the other martial arts. And you're right. It's chess, so as to speak.
Mm,
I remember once in the case of rolling in this basement, it's just taxing because because with jujitsu as well, yes, it's physically taxing, but mentally as well because it's all
yeah,
about thinking. How is it in the case of yeah? So it's one of those I think uh uh trainings I think yeah will be very it's very good for kids because as you indicated I think very chances of it's not as sort of as
it's
I
not
would
as violent.
say as violent as as the other sport. It's more about the mechanics and all that, so which is actually awesome.
Yeah, and I think also in real world terms, I've heard Joe Rogan express this before, so it's not my idea. I'm just echoing. But in real world terms, um, you look at any self defense. I've got a very good mate, Ayaz, who teaches Krav Maga. Now, Krav is one of the more violent sort of sporting activities you could want to undertake. But you sort of stand, and the first thing they'll teach you is if you're unfortunate enough to find yourself engaged in conflict and the conflict is going to turn physical, your best response if you're on your feet is to get away. But that's the
Totally.
safest thing you can do is run away, get away, put distance between yourself and the aggressor. Because in a physical stand-up confrontation where you're hitting, kicking, objects are involved, weapons are involved potentially, like it has that element of luck to it where you might get a lucky punch in, but the other person might get a lucky punch in, and things can just go very, very wrong. However, if it goes to the ground and the insane percentage of physical confrontations end up on the floor, it's quite comical to watch in real life. If you know what to do, you can very easily wrap your opponents up, control them physically so that you're not hurting them, but you're also protecting yourself. And I think that is such a key skill for kids to have, particularly women, because unfortunately we live in a world where the violence against women, sexual violence and such, is unfortunately high. And I want my
Yeah.
daughter, I'm father of a girl, I want my daughter equipped with the right life skills that if she were ever unfortunate enough to find herself in a situation like that, she gives herself the very best possible chance of A, get away, first choice. But B, if you cannot get away, control the person on the ground, render them unable to do what they're wanting to do, and keep yourself safe. I think that's such a beautiful skill to have.
Absolutely. Yeah, it cannot be, I think, said enough in the case of like equipping young people, I think, with these kind of skills. But I think that's what I found, I think, in martial arts as well, is the teaching that you now get to appreciate what a human body can actually do.
Mm.
So with that, you're more likely going to avoid violence.
Yeah.
Right. Because I think for me, that's what I found, because like that's what we teach in the case of like the first reaction you should have in a situation. You can get away from a situation. Why
Yeah.
would you want to be in a fight to start off with,
Yeah.
right? Right. So it should be the last resort, as far as in the case of like you being able just to defend yourself if you have to. Because then you can also appreciate the fact that, okay, I can do this, but I don't know what the other person can actually do as well.
Mm.
Right. So it's all about being that awareness as well, which I think the martial arts, I think, discipline instills, I think, in young people.
Yeah. Yeah. And I do like that.
Yeah.
Again, Jordan Peterson sort of
Mm.
expresses something along the lines of you want to be capable of violence, but constrained enough that you don't act it out unnecessarily. And I think that's a good place for someone to be, because it's a useful toolkit when it's necessary. And it's interesting because you find people that practice martial arts are, generally speaking, the least likely to actively seek physical confrontation. You
Totally.
just sort of
Yeah.
back off and know that you can handle yourself, but you also know that this isn't the right way to handle things, and you don't want to go down that way. Where you find people who and again, we're generalizing because there are exceptions to the rule. You get the bell distribution curve, and you'll find people on opposite extremes, of course, but the majority of people in the middle would behave in a predictable way. I mean, most people who have never partaken in a martial art would be the first to fancy themselves as like street kings and want to throw down. But yeah, it's interesting stuff. So Richie,
Absolutely. Yeah.
it's been absolutely wonderful having you on. And we could carry on for hours, but mindful of time, if you wanted to have one takeaway from this discussion, one key message that the audience can take away with them and have that resonate with them, what would that be for you?
Start with self. I think for me, I think the takeaway from there, upgrade the operator behind everything, behind the business, behind the job,
Nice.
right? Then everything else falls in place. Don't
Nice.
worry too much about those hacks, those strategies. Start with the operator. And I love what you're doing right now. We're talking about metabolic health as well, because that's a starting point. Start with the body, then everything else sort of like falls into place.
Good stuff. I like that, and I couldn't agree more. And Richie, for the audience, if they want to look you up and learn more about you, you've got a book, you've got some strategies and stuff. Where can everyone find you?
Oh yes, I think the best place to find me is LinkedIn. I'm always posting on LinkedIn. So you could look me up on Ritchie Nkana. Yeah, I respond pretty much to all messages. You can message me on there. I'm also on Twitter. I'm told it's X now. I refuse to call it X, but yeah, yeah, I'm on X as well. Yeah, and you can. My book is links ritchienkana.com as well. There is that's my website. I think there's links to my book website there as well.
Nice. Awesome.
Yeah,
And for the audience, what I'll do is I'll get those links off you, and I'll
great.
include them in the show notes for it. So anyone wanting to reach out to Richie and learn more about him and find out more from him, just look at the show notes and you'll find all the relevant links for him there. Well, Richie, thank
So
you again for
Ricky,
your time. It's been absolutely fantastic. Thanks for your time,
Ricky,
everyone. Have a good day.
Ricky, appreciate it. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for watching the episode. I hope that you found the conversation meaningful and informative, and I hope that it has empowered you with some tools and insights that you can take to tweak and improve your own lifestyle approach in pursuit of optimal metabolic health outcomes. If you've enjoyed the episode, and if you're enjoying the podcast, I'd like you to do me the kindness of please subscribing to the channel, giving it a like, maybe even giving it a share, help to raise awareness and get the podcast in front of as many viewers as possible, because it is my passion to try and help as many people as possible to understand more of the nuance around metabolic health and how to tweak their lifestyle in pursuit of optimal outcomes. Also, if you have any constructive feedback, things that you think I could improve on, any critiques, any criticisms, please do feed them back. I give you my solemn word that I will take them seriously, and I will, to the best of my ability, work to improve and to give you a more refined and more targeted product as a result of your feedback. So I will take it seriously, and I'll do what I can to improve the show. But again, thank you very much for watching. Keep thriving.